Oh my god. Did he just... I cannot believe this. Shane Dawson has started his docuseries on the mind of Jake Paul, and all of us, I think, are like, what the hell is gonna happen? For those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you could be on YouTube and not know these names, but Jake Paul and Logan Paul are the Paul brothers, and they have gotten into a lot of controversy on YouTube in the past couple of years. Shane's series, though, is focusing on the younger brother, Jake Paul, not Logan Paul. Don't get them confused. I forgot that this was even being released today, and I checked my phone and the news said that Shane was questioning if Jake Paul was a sociopath, and I was like, oh no. Honestly, I could smell the drama coming, and I try to keep my channel a drama-free channel, but hello, it's the Paul brothers. If you take the words YouTube and drama and put them together, you pretty much get the Paul brothers. But in truth, my channel is a mental health channel, and I do not give into the drama as much as I can avoid it, so here we're gonna try to have a real discussion about whether Jake Paul could be a sociopath or not. And I have to start this off by saying, we can't make that decision. We're not licensed professionals, and only somebody who's really sat down with him and been able to talk with him and understand things could make a proper diagnosis. Somebody who's been to school, who's got the licensure. Now, Shane has done something kind of interesting here because he's got Katie Morton, another YouTuber who is a licensed therapist, to talk about what a sociopath is, and I'm really curious to see what she has to say about that, but we haven't seen that yet, so let's talk about what we did see in part one. Alright, Jake Paul has been through a lot of stuff since his time on YouTube, and I don't really need to summarize for you. If you watched part one of Shane's series, if you haven't, go watch it, please. But if you have seen this, if you know anything about Jake Paul, like, it's all drama. He has caused chaos in his life, and the people around him have all come out and talked about this chaos, and there are probably thousands of examples of stuff that he's done that somebody could say, like, there's something a little wrong here. But Shane seems to be focusing on this idea of whether or not he's a sociopath, so let's talk about that. The first thing I want to say when it comes to a sociopath is that they don't use that word anymore. If you go into the DSM-5, I've got it right back here. I'm not going to pull it out because I know what it says. They don't have sociopath and psychopath in there anymore. They condensed them down into one personality disorder known as antisocial personality disorder. That does not mean shy. It means that they are antisocial. In other words, they are against other people, or in general, like, they just don't relate to people the way that a healthy human being would. That's oversimplifying, but we're going to get into a little bit more detail. So the DSM has two different ways that you can look at personality disorders. One is like the kind of official way that if you were to go in and get seen by a licensed therapist, how they would diagnose you, and that kind of goes off of this behavior of basically being mean to others, being destructive to society, doing things that are harmful, not really caring about the repercussions and having remorse, all of that kind of stuff, basically being a shitty person. But there was an alternative method for diagnosing personality disorders developed that I personally prefer better, and also it is something that has kind of been adopted into the ICD-11 in a different form, so that's what I'm going to focus on here, and that's talking about personality traits. I prefer to look at personality traits because personality traits, I think, help us to get a deeper understanding of what's going on. So listen to these traits of antisocial personality disorder and think back to the moments that you saw Shane displaying in part one of the series, The Mind of Jake Paul. These are the traits of antisocial personality disorder. You've got callousness, basically just being mean to people. Deceitfulness, lying to people. Hostility, kind of like attacking and being aggressive towards people. Impulsivity, which is when you just do things without really thinking about them. Irresponsibility, so not taking responsibility for the things that you've done or maybe how they've harmed people. Manipulativeness, basically lying and trying to get people to do something that you want. And risk-taking, just doing things that could cause harm to yourself or others. So what do you think? Does that sound like Jake Paul? I'll give you a second. Okay, you probably have a conclusion, but I want to go over these traits again, and I want you to think about yourself this time. Okay, callousness. Have you ever been mean to anybody? Have you ever called them names? Have you ever put somebody down before? Deceitfulness. Have you ever lied to somebody? Maybe you lied to your parents before because you didn't want to Have them know something you did that you knew that they disapproved of. Hostility. Have you ever gotten aggressive to anybody in your life before? Impulsivity. Have you ever done something without really thinking about it? Maybe you grab something out of the refrigerator, not even realizing like, oh, why is this in my hand? Irresponsibility. Have you ever denied that you were at fault for something? Manipulativeness. Have you ever tried to get somebody else to do something that you want? Maybe when you were dating, you tried to make yourself look a little bit better than you were to try to get your date to be attracted to you. Risk-taking. Have you ever done something that, could have hurt you? Okay, so why did I have you do that? What's going on here? Well, chances are you probably could think of a few examples for at least a few of those traits. That does not make you have antisocial personality disorder, but if you match the traits, isn't that how you're diagnosed? Well, here's the thing when it comes to personality traits. First of all, let's just be clear that personality traits can always change. I hate when we talk about personality and people act like, well, it's set in stone, that's the way they are, and that's the way I've always been. You can change and people can change. But when it comes to personality traits, there's different levels of severity and they can change throughout our lives. We may be more hostile right now because we're under a lot of stress and we're freaking out at work and we're just angry and we need to blow off some steam. So that may be our pattern right now because we're going through a really hard time, and we may have that personality trait right now, but once we finish our job and once work is done for the season or whatever it is, we may go back to just being like a regular, calm, chill person. So all of these traits have different levels that they could be at depending on what's going on in somebody's life and how they cope and deal with the things that are going on in the world. And Shane kind of brought this to our attention when he was talking about YouTubers in general and how sometimes there's this goal of chasing views and how you have to do more and more extreme things to get the views, that could be pressuring people to bring out these personality traits in themselves. And that brings me to another concept that's a little bit old and maybe not talked about as much, but I think it's relevant when we're talking about sociopaths and antisocial personality disorder, and that's this concept of having a false self. So Shane was talking about how, is it fake? Does he have a fake persona? And in psychology, you would probably call that a false self. Now, a false self is when somebody has a presentation that they present to the world of who they are that's not really aligning with who they really are. Now, here's the thing though, if somebody is putting on a play and acting and being a part and they know that and they know it's not real and they're totally calm and comfortable and fine with that, I wouldn't call that a false self. A false self is something where somebody really believes it. They really feel like they are this larger than life person, or they feel like they are this dangerous person, or whatever the image of themselves that they want to portray is. They really believe that's who they are. In other words, they think that the things that are motivating them are all of these things that they've envisioned for what their life looks like, but really what's motivating them is something else deep down inside that they're not acknowledging. When it comes to Jake Paul, who knows? And this is the trouble with personality disorders and trying to diagnose people without really knowing them in the first place. Here in the United States, there was a lot of talk about, is Donald Trump a narcissist? And there were a lot of psychologists who were saying, yeah, he definitely is a narcissist, without ever having sat down with him. And that's actually an ethical violation according to the American Psychological Association. You can't do that. And the reason why it's an ethical violation and why you can't do that is because you don't know why somebody's behaving the way they are. So if you want to know if Jake Paul is a sociopath or has antisocial personality disorder or even has any of these traits, you have to have a conversation with Jake Paul. You need to know what is motivating him, what's going on, what's happened in his past, why does he think he's doing the things that he's doing? Does he understand the way that things that he does has an effect on people? Does he really get it? Does he empathize? Does he feel those things? And does it even matter? Because you don't have to understand the way that things are hurting people, because if you keep hurting people, that is a problem. Honestly, most of these questions we don't have answers to, but maybe Shane will help us get some of those answers. What I'm curious to see is, what is Katie Morton going to say about all of this, because she is a licensed professional. Now, Shane did say that he didn't mention that this was about Jake Paul. He just wanted to know about sociopaths, and that way she's really not violating any kind of ethical standard here, because she's just talking about sociopaths and antisocial personality disorder in general. I think that Katie's probably going to stick with what the DSM says in the main section, like the very basic information about how they tend to do like criminal things and they tend to just be mean people and they don't have any remorse. We kind of saw a little bit of a teaser of that. If you ask me, all of this is like still very up in the air and we don't know that much yet, but I want to see what's going to happen and I will be following along, hopefully with you. What do you think is going to be revealed? Let's hear it. Leave me a comment down below. Do it, bro.